Good morning, everyone. And I would like to say good morning to two sets of people. The set of us, which are wherever we are, in our living rooms, our dining rooms, our dens, our basements, on our decks, wherever, and those who are in our beloved sanctuary. I almost thought I was going to have a really good commuter story to tell you this morning when both Jackie and Tanya informed me, no, you don't have to get in the car and drive to church. Some people will be there, but we're not doing church live yet. But I realized I've been advised that I'm up on the big screen, so this is my big screen debut. So no commuter stories, but a cat report. Usually the cat likes to sleep in my bedroom on my bed, but today he's on the sofa. We'll see if he has any comments for me afterwards. My talk, as was announced, is understanding is more than saying, I got it. I got it. What is understanding? Well, the simplest way it was put to me in Unity when I first found it was that God stands under everything. And as I began to explore these truths, I realized that this was, in fact, a true statement. But I began to realize that it was much more than that. The truth of it comes, of course, when we use our opening phrase, there is only one power, one presence in the universe, God the good, omnipotent. And our expansion of that, of saying, and I am one with this one that is all. And I am ever life. I am ever substance. I am ever health. I am all that is possible to be experienced in the world. But of course, I like to look up what Mr. Fillmore, one of our co-founders, had to say about understanding. And I'm going to my trusty copy of Revealing Word. You know that I have one. And I'm sure there's one in the bookstore in case you'd like to have one at home too. Among other things, it says, God is supreme knowing. That in man which comprehends is understanding. It knows and comprehends in wisdom. Its comparisons are not made in the realm of form, but in the realm of ideas. It knows how to accomplish things. Spiritual discernment reveals that knowledge and intelligence are auxiliary to understanding. Well, I like the short version better. God stands under all things. And what it means to me is that as difficult as this may seem, whatever is, and it is good. It is here for a purpose. It is here for a reason. It may be here for a time. It may be here for an occasion. But the circumstances in which we live are the circumstances in which we experience both our humanity and our divinity. Because Fillmore goes on to say, and I found this one very helpful, there are two ways of getting understanding. One is by following the guidance of spirit that dwells within, and the other is to go blindly ahead and learn by hard experience. Is there one of us which can say we haven't tried it both ways? We've sat in meditation, we've sat in group thought, we've sung together, we've prayed together, we have experienced the presence of God together. And then we've had those moments where we've gone off on our own little path, came back and have had to say, been there, done that, got that t-shirt, took the selfie, I learned the hard way, or discovered that we haven't yet learned the hard way. And there we are again, up to our kneecaps, wondering what we're doing in the swamp, forgetting that we're there to get rid of the alligators. You've all heard that one. You know that. This understanding is important for us to understand. And that's something that I wish to explore. It is a power attributed to God. And through our presence in God or God's presence in us, however you wish to frame that, because either way of speaking it is true, we participate in that power. It is something that we share. It is something that we have agency to use. But what I'd like to look at it today is in our concept of human understanding. Because how readily comes to our lips the words, yeah, I got it. I got it. I got it. Somebody's talking to us and we go, yeah, I got it. Well, the question is, what have you got? And another question would be, and how did you get it? Of course, Fillmore spoke to us when he said that it is an aspect of comprehension. He goes on to say, spiritual understanding is the quickening of the spirit within. Spiritual understanding is the ability of the mind to apprehend and realize the laws of thought and the relation of ideas to one another. That's our simple teaching of cause and effect. What you think is what you get. So when we say, I got it, it means much more than we may have considered. One of the things I'd like to look at is, how do we actually use, or rather, how do we experience this concept of understanding? Imagine yourself talking to someone and they're going on, and all of a sudden you go, yeah, I got it. And why did you say that? Because inside your head, you were listening to Jack or Jill and you're going, oh God, they're into their story again and I know it already and I don't want to hear it again. So I got it. Usually with a smile. Or somebody is talking to us and we're thinking, I can't make heads or tails out of this. I don't know what they're saying. So we quickly go, I got it. To bring our own discomfort to a close. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here, so I'm just going to make an exit from this situation. I'd like us to think of the ways in which we use this and the emotions that we have around it. When we're talking to someone and they are speaking of something which we too have experienced, we're more inclined to say, I got it. And what we mean is, I too have experienced this and have an awareness of what you're talking about. They could be describing some situation in their life in which they're experiencing fear, or they are grieving over the loss of something, or they are in doubt, or they have questions, or they're just lost. And we can relate to that. We can express sympathy. We can express empathy. And as I've said, we always have the way of going, I got it. It's a way of saying, stop it, cut to the chase, get to the point. One inside, sometimes we're also going, there isn't any point here. I just want it to be over. Can this use of understanding as a power be more? What does true understanding require in our personal expression in life? Well, I thought about this, and they are qualities which we all possess. Some we exercise more often than others. And the first one that came to my mind was humility. Humility. Oh, also known as humbleness or being humble, sometimes considered a virtue and sometimes just considered, oh, I'm just going to be nice and do this. I'm going to look like I'm humble, but I'm really not. But true humility encompasses willingness. True humility encompasses the willingness to be present without judgment, to be present without formulating your answer in your head or running an algorithm of what they're trying to tell you and what its relevance to you is. True humility is simply sitting there and being God's presence to that person, being God's presence of love to that person. So it requires humility, because we immediately want to be able to say, oh, I know what your problem is. I know what your issue is, and I know how you can solve it. And that's what we do. We tell them. Or we withdraw, and we don't. We have so many choices in our human life about how to express our divinity. One of the most important ones is listening. Boy, that can be hard. Some of us have taken courses in how to listen, and that can be hard. Some of us actually have difficulty listening to ourselves. So how talented could we be in listening to someone else? But what does listening really look like? I'd like us to take for a moment a view of the life of Jesus. So here's Jesus. He's this 30-year-old man. He has a point to make about living in a relationship to God. He's traveling around, probably never getting more than 50 miles from where he was born. But it doesn't matter. He meets groups of people, and yes, he speaks to them, but he has also listened to them. How many times in his life stories, as we find them in the New Testament, did he listen first? I'd like to think of the man at the pool of Bethesda. You know, the man who's been sitting there for, 30 or 40 years. And Jesus encounters him, and they have a conversation. And what the man says is, I'm still here because I can't get into the pool fast enough when the angel comes and stirs the water. Okay, that's an allegory, and we're not going to look at that today. What it is he's got a reason why he's sitting there not doing anything. And Jesus understands that there is a question behind the question. And what he does in listening to the person is ultimately ask him, what do you really want? It isn't that the man just wants to get into the pool of water fast, because you got to be the first one in order to get the healing. He wants the healing. He wants the healing. And when Jesus meets other people, when he meets a blind person, he listens to what that person is saying. And the question behind the question, what is it this person wants? The blind person wants to see. The lame person wants to walk upright, freely. When he meets the centurion, Jesus' infinite knowledge knows what the centurion wants, but he makes him say it. What is it that you want? And he said, my daughter is ill. Will you come and heal her? In each case, he has engaged the person to find out what is the significant issue, the significant desire in their life. And then he offers them an opportunity to experience it. What does he say to the centurion? Okay, I'll come. And the child is healed. The man doesn't even have to get into the pool. Jesus looks at him and says, take up that carpet you've been sitting on and walk. And the blind man, the crippled man, the lame man, they leap up in joy at having seen the change that they desired. So I'd like to tell you a story in current human time. And I'm going to use my two favorite fictitious names, Bob and Bill. Okay. I was listening to a TV program a couple of nights ago, and an author was being interviewed, and he ended up telling this story. It was about a youngish man who was thinking about going into political life, but he hadn't made quite that decision yet, I should say. And he was talking to a friend, and they kind of came up with, the friend kind of said, well, why don't you kind of do a group discussion and, float the idea, that sort of thing. I said, okay. So they got the group together and it came off and it worked. And later on, the man who had facilitated this group for person A, whose name we haven't revealed yet, was talking to another friend. He said, so how was it? He said, it was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. He said, well, what? He said, was he a really good speaker? And actually the other fellow had been there and he said, he was really a good speaker. And Bob, who'd facilitated the thing, thought to himself, no, the guest really hadn't said that much at all. And he thought about it. He said, the guy also said to him, he said, well, did he light up the room? And he said, yeah, but not exactly in the way you thought. You know how some people walk into a room and it lights up because they've sucked all the energy and the oxygen right out of the room. He said, it wasn't that. He said, what happened was we sat around the table and the person there for whom I was facilitating this meeting went around to each person at the table and asked them, what would you do to see the change that you desire to see in the world today? And he said, as they spoke, they lit up. They lit up with the passion of what they wanted to see unfold. And he said, wow, that's pretty amazing. He said, yeah, because we're all stars. We're all stars, folks. We know that. When I say stars, I mean we are beings of light. Through the presence of God within us, we are beings of light. But what is it that turns on our light? There is a switch. We all know this. We have days of light and we have days of darkness. But what is it that turns on that switch? Because the light is always there. By asking and then listening, the person turned on the light switch of all the other people. The room absolutely lit up. The question, or not the question is, but what the person ultimately said was, if you want people to become excited, you have to be willing to recognize that there is power. But the important thing is, you have to understand that each of us has a power and has a light. What the man said was, be predisposed to see the power in other people. So when we sit down with someone, or when we walk with someone, what are we doing? We are giving them the opportunity to switch on their light. When someone comes to us and we ask the question, so how are you? And they say, fine. What does fine really mean? Can we ask another question? Can we engage? Are we willing to be humble enough and not judge by appearance? Are we willing to be humble enough to set aside our own, oh, I know, yeah, I know, I got it. The reality is, most of the times, we don't got it. We are as wondering and as amazed at the unfolding universe as everyone else is around us. We are explorers. We are explorers of the light. We are light travelers in the universe. We are here to do that. Can we do it together? Yes, if we realize that everyone has light, has power. Jackie and I had no disagreement at all on choosing the hymn. I said to her, can we do number 72, Open My Eyes That I May See? It's one of my absolute all-time favorites. And she said, oh yeah, we haven't sung that in a long time. No problem. And what does that hymn say? It says, open my eyes that I may see. What are we seeing with? We are seeing with the inner eye of the soul. We are seeing with the eye of the Christ presence. We are seeing the truth that no matter what the person before us looks like or behaves like, the Christ presence inheres in that person. That person is a child of God, just as we are a child of God. So already we are seeing with a new vision. And then it says, open my ears. Open my ears. We know that we have inner senses and outer senses. Our ears. Wow, our ears. How well do we listen? We've all taken that same class where they talk about even as the person is speaking, we are formulating our reply and it's on the tip of our tongue. Friends, where is the honor of allowing the other person to say what they need to say? We've become so good at the snappy reply, especially in our public society. Oh, we've got an answer for everything. And the one who answers first gets the first punch in. But that's not the way our world could be or should be. Open my ears that I may hear the nuances, the subtleties. As I watch the face of the person to whom I'm speaking, what are they revealing? Is there tension? Is there worry? Is there stress? Or are they relaxed and smiling? Watch those little muscles right here along the jawline. Are they doing something strange that indicates stress? And then the last verse of the song says, open my mouth that I may carry the words of truth. Because this is the important part of saying I got it, is being in a state of understanding so that we may be enlightened enough to let the words of God come out of our mouth. I will tell you that every single minister that has ever stood on any podium has stepped off it sometimes at the end and went, I don't know where that came from. We had a talk. We knew what we were going to say. And in some moments, Spirit took hold in a profound way. And a word came out. A word came out that was just the word. And then it's validated in the most unusual. Somebody comes up to you and says, I felt like you were just talking to me this morning. And I always say within myself, no, honey, I was talking to myself. I just didn't know it. So these three things, these three avenues of becoming aware, these three avenues of becoming aware are so important to us. Why is this important to us now? Because we are entering a post-pandemic life. I'm going to use a phrase that we've heard on television. This has nothing partisan to it. It's simply a phrase about how we're going to build our lives, build back better. Because if we truly understand, life is not going to be exactly as it was before. It can't be. It only moves forward. And it can only be different. So the power of understanding, this willingness to be humble, to be willing and to be listening is really, really important for us. But the first person we really need to listen to is ourselves. Many of us have been sitting at home, not saying a whole lot. I talk to the cat, but he never answers. Although I have noticed he said meow more recently, but that's because his dish was empty, which meant I wasn't paying attention. So we need to listen to ourselves and understand what changes do we want to make as we reopen ourselves and our world. And then we look at others. I was at a wonderful event on the 26th of May, which was the day before my birthday, and 12 people whom I knew well but had not seen in over a year were in the backyard for the first time in well over a year. And there was so much hugging and squeezing and kissing and squealing going on. It was absolutely wonderful. Really, really wonderful. And I felt this upliftment, and so did everyone else. And we were so full of joy. And that is the change that we may desire to see. In this way, we recognize our oneness, friends, going forward. But there is something that I wish to go back to. It is the phrase, be prepared to see that other people have power. We have the power of God within each of us, and so does everyone else. By the way, the man who said, be prepared to see that others have power within them, went on to become the 44th president of the United States. That was Barack Obama. So where do we go from here? As we were speaking before we turned on the Zoom, somebody's going out for dinner. We had a lively discussion of where the best calamari were, and they informed me it was way too far for me to drive, so that's not going to happen. People are talking about what they're going to do. Someone is graduating. Someone else is going somewhere. We all have plans. Maybe many of you were in a backyard somewhere or a park having a wonderful picnic. Or maybe you are still waiting and thinking about what you want to do. The decision is ours. I recently was made aware of a book entitled The Power of Giving Away Power. What an amazing title. It was written by a man named Matthew Barzun, B-A-R-Z-U-N. I always spell because I was a teacher. And I thought, the power of giving away power. Because the power that is within us, friends, is the endless, limitless, infinite power of the presence of God's love. We can always give that away. We cannot exhaust the supply of God's love. So if you're going to go out this afternoon and have a good time, or you're going to go pull weeds out of the garden or put tomato plants in, or just go cuddle the cat, or, pet the dog, or whatever you're going to do, the question is, what would you like to do to bring the change about that you'd like to see? And then by listening to those around you, understand that in our oneness, in our awareness of our oneness, of our connection, we have the power to be those individualized expressions of God.